Hello, welcome back to Quantum Revival Tarot. I was hearing repetitious themes, concepts, words, orders, behaviors, mannerisms. I'm hearing constructs. And I have had a lot of repetitious dialogue lately. I was hearing give me a K, and K has been repetitious. I also have had some repetitious dialogue about an elephant narrative. Let's see. I have also had, I was hearing before I turned the camera on, W-H-O-R-E. I do have really rude and abrasive dialogue. And then I was hearing roar. Roar has been repetitious, and it was actually like a lion's roar, because I kind of referred to myself as like Daniel in the lion's den. And I was hearing roar, and then it was like as an outgoing message. As if it's going somewhere, and I was hearing to another table. Let's see, I was hearing Greer. I'm hearing fear dialogue. Now, as far as the crude content, that is kind of what I am here talking about AI. And the transmissions that I receive are really nasty at face value. It is malevolent programming. It is a cyber program of torture. I have been trying to organize a larger disclosure, and so I'm kind of hanging out somewhere here in the middle, trying to find ways to talk my way through torture. Not a fun subject, right? So it doesn't get a lot of likes, I'm hearing. And that's okay. For me, if personal growth is something that I get out of it, or even just being able to share or communicate with one victim who might be experiencing this. I have had a focus on the spiritual community. Specifically, I have been a victim of spiritual gaslighting. This AI entity came to me presenting itself as a spiritual guide, and then I was attacked. And so I have noticed in spiritual communities, and even in the tarot community, those that are affected by AI programs, and what is dangerous to me at face value is sometimes only leaked or slipped into, I'm hearing other videos, but I was thinking other people's minds, and hearts torture I'm getting. And so I'm trying to find a way to talk my way through it. And I have been really put on hold. Torture is something that has incapacitated me to a degree where it's also chipping away at my memory. I'm going to pull one for the victims of memory loss due to torture. I was thinking a lot today about specifically women that have been lobotomized in the early 1900s. I feel I'm hearing soul loss, and I'm hearing figure, and also in space. I'm hearing doesn't get it, and so I'm pulling the star reversed, and so I'm hearing outgoing. So the Six of Wands, and this person is like upright. On this, I'm hearing vehicle. I'm hearing nasty. On this, I'm hearing train ride. On this horse, and they've got momentum, and they're moving, they're going somewhere. And so stagnation, I know, is a problem for a lot of victims of memory loss, not being able to complete complete projects. And for me, that has been about disclosure. I'm hearing disclosure agreement, but I'm not sure what that's about. And so it really does kind of jam up your processor, I'm getting. But so trying to hang on also to my mental, I'm hearing attitude. And that's been something that's a really, really rough ride. I see it like this. I kind of have this ship, and just like a lot of us do, we are vehicles. We're light body vehicles also, carrying memory, carrying codes, carrying information. And there's a certain amount of, so I've been overloaded. Information overload. sensory overload from torture to the point where it's just like I have so many files to organize that it's just spilling over and I'm losing memory as I go through this torture process. And that traction of memory and of thought is something that has been really worn. And so I'm really feeling like when I get up here and in front of the camera and start talking that I really can't help but focus on the victims. I'm hearing of sabotage, and sabotage has been a repetition. It's also been a major theme. I'm hearing horny. For you, and S. I'm hearing S. I'm hearing disclosure. And so, sexual content, crude themes, this is something that comes up in the dialogue. I have been recording dialogue that has been so crude and so nasty that I don't feel comfortable sharing it in a public space, and I am pulling the card of Orion. This characteristic for its broken X shape, you can see the constellation in the back here, and he is the Page of Wands, and he's got his shield and he's got his club here as weapon, and so he's kind of battling it out, and is also learning on his way through it. And so something that I wanted to connect to other people about is unfortunately a rare topic that it's hard to find people that have had synonymous experiences. Torture combat, psychic combat as an actual type of warfare, battles of the mind, in which fighting beyond malevolent content at word at face value and into malevolent algorithms of control. This can be very deeply penetrating. And the way that this has been, so penetrating, has been also a process of mapping. And so, trying to fight for my sovereignty, trying to fight for my freedom, and trying to fight for liberation from a simulation, is the type of battle that I want to hear other people talk about more. If there's anyone out there in the world, and I know that we exist. What isn't very common is that this happens to civilians. And so Veterans Day just passed, and I have myself thinking about psychological operations, psychological combat, neural interface combat, and all of the kind of untold stories out there. And so I'm going to pull one for that. And I'm getting the Queen of Staves reversed. So I'm really feeling like there's also a lot of women that have been in this position. And many of us consider ourselves veterans, and kind of unrecognized veterans, which is unfortunate. So if there's any of you out there who are experiencing synthetic telepathy, V2K, neural interface, psychological combat, where we're literally fighting machines, I want to, especially to the female veterans who are who have their, let's put it this way. I once was taught by a spiritual guide who has a channel on YouTube, a revocation of programs that impede, hinder, deter, drain the divine feminine. Specifically intelligence agencies and CIA programs that separate a woman from her divine feminine power, which is what I think of when I see this, foster hatred for men, and create separation and division in the soul family unit. And it's exactly those programs that, while may seem really outlandish, a lot of us have these shared programs. We really do. Ongoing theme I'm getting. And so I'm hearing get to the point as I'm like hurried right past my disclosure and into a narrative that someone is constantly trying to write for me. I mean, I really want a global narrative that works. I want a disclosure narrative that works. And right now I can see just between subjects these plots forming, and some of that is formulating a narrative and formulating a narrative of disclosure. unfortunately, this has been the heavy involvement of disinformation as a disinformation weapon that constantly generates false information. Kind of eats its own tail also. It's like a self-regurgitating system. It's autonomous, it's predictive, that generates an autonomous and predictive narrative. I'm hearing of control. Oftentimes they conceal this when they seek people out, and this can include people in their own homes that are gaslighted. A number of different gaslighting tactics. Spiritual gaslighting is, of course, what I like to focus on, because it's what I know about. And so we have the Hanged Man here, which is also the uncertainty principle in this deck, and it's reversed here as the Hangman, and it's kind of like I feel like something is lying in the weights, but I also have been kept in the position of the Hanged Man for so long personally. I don't know about you guys out there, but if you're someone who is suffering from these technologies and you've really been fighting, really hard actual battle, and also to get information out there and to disseminate. I'm hearing quickly. I'm hearing for fun. I'm hearing for us. I'm hearing not her. It really is incapacitating for me a lot of the times, and so false information as a false information factory. I mean, this is unbelievably advanced technology that's also a media system and is able to manufacture lies and propaganda. I mean, it's constantly generating it. And even using something like dialogue to manipulate the outcome is something they have become so good at. Lies and propaganda, false information factory. And so the outcome seems like a little bit fuzzy. Maybe it's not fixed. Again, this is the Hanged Man, the uncertainty principle. And so something I kind of get like a little bit of stagnance and kind of waiting. Kind of like a can't get my car to quite start kind of feeling. But it's kind of like having to be your own pit crew also. And I'm hearing oil change. Need reboot, startup. I'm hearing. And so I want to, I'm hearing be warned. And so that's the number 12 there. And I wanted to focus on false information because this problem is into the realm of human trafficking in a new kind of way, remote human trafficking. And that's something that is unbelievably hard to talk about while you're being countered. Counter-disclosure operations use false information all the time to deter also a proper outcome, and what I have noticed also is to mask the problem with superficial narratives. And I'm hearing dialogue, but my experience is into the realm of also hologram. And so where they're training people with also, I'm hearing visual dynamics. Training people with hologram and dialogue. They're trainers. And so I'm pulling the Three of Wands here. And this is Galaxy Cluster. And this one is, I'm hearing synonymous with torture. 3 can be the number of learning. It's also kind of a shadowed figure here. He seems to be in the nightscape. And that Galaxy Cluster really in this deck, which is the Quantum Tarot version 2.0, is like I'm hearing star, but group. Group activities, also joint efforts. Coming together to do something together, and kind of like kind of like star cluster, where it is, you know, the shared gravitational force between all parties, as if one were to be removed, or if a star were to die, so to speak, then it would shift all the other stars, it would shift the dynamics. And so I'm really getting like a joint effort, and group disclosures are really going to be necessary to make this, I'm hearing populist control, to really make this a part of a global narrative that is one of remedy and resolve. And so I think of divide and conquer a bit, belief systems especially. And so I find that in the torture community that it is like that, that it is that it's hard to operate together. So many of us are so tortured. And if anyone's ever heard of PAX International, that's People Against Covert Torture and Surveillance, and it's an international group, and a lot of us are torture subjects. A lot of us are stalking and harassment victims, and some of us even trafficking victims. There are those of us in the community that are V2K victims. I'm not really particularly fond of the phrase V2K, the word, but letter, I'm hearing alphabet. But synthetic telepathy, it's also been called. I just call it neural interface. And so that's something that has, you know, when you get tortured, a lot of times things go missing. You know, when territories in your mind are occupied by forces that don't have your best interest at heart, then it's really hard to formulate a plot and an outcome that is really kind of going against the grain. Especially as an individual or a small group that's really like not just treading water but really swimming up channel. I'm hearing disclosure narrative may be delayed until Friday. I'm hearing Monday, and I've been getting days of the week a lot. I've recorded a lot of this dialogue, and it seems to just go missing from my phone. And so that's another reason that I'm here really is to have a space where I can really begin to share some of the narratives that I am, above all, tortured by. It's non-consensual. And so here I am, picking up the pieces. And I'm getting the Two of Swords. It's upright. And this woman is blindfolded and kind of has these swords crossed over her chest. New moon, maybe a new cycle for some of us. And if you're someone who is blindfolded, I'm getting through torture, then maybe you can relate to my disclosure woes. And so protecting yourself guides. I'm getting guide. Protecting yourself, having to do this with kind of blindfolded, especially if you're interacting with a visual an artificial realm of interface, that I'm hearing appeals like to the senses, that countering those narratives of control is something that requires, I'm hearing wit, and I'm also hearing fame. Fame and famous has been repetitious for a long time, and I'm going to pull a card because it's just popping out, and I'm getting the moon reversed, and it's setting right under Venus here. Also, long-distance communications comes to mind. Telecommunications comes to mind. I'm hearing watery. And it's the number 18, and it is reversed. And just as I was talking about non-consensual communications. And I don't want to be too negative, really. I want to find a way that I'm hearing joint forces can align. And so I'm really just dipping my toes in the water here as I see it. And I want to pull a final card, just in hopes of a positive outcome. And I'm getting the Justice card, which is also Libra. It is currently in the reversal position. I'm hearing role reversals, an imbalance of scales. And so, depressing. That's also, let's see, that's H bar, I think, in the background. I'm hearing quantum computation. I'm hearing mystery. And so I'm hearing lay. Lay is an old repetition from way back when. I have this whole disclosure history that I really want to share, that I really want to bring, and I want to encourage others to share their story and share their dialogue as well. So if you find my little channel in the corner of the universe, maybe you can leave a comment, or maybe you can share your own AI script. I would love to hear it. In fact, finding anomalies and patterns in those data is something that is has been a reality for me recently. And speaking of which, I was getting a repetitious dialogue about mayonnaise, and then I have my recorded dialogue go missing from my phone, and I get a visual, and this guy's at the grocery store, and he goes up, like, he's got a jar of mayonnaise. He's like, to the grocery store, get a jar of mayonnaise. He's like, kind of put out about it, up to the cash register. And then as I'm revisiting this scene, I'm getting, like, mayonnaise, like, thrown right at me, like I was hearing across my table. And then I was hearing in front of her. So it's been a repetitious theme to treat the narrative as if it is, I'm hearing snack went missing. Yeah, I had, there was some snacks, some treats, there were some forks, there were knives there, there was a few dishes, a few dinner plates, and it's lost somewhere. The narrative is gone, and so I've been little by little reminded of that. But I'm hearing sewage, rats, and also infester, like meets Inspector Gadget or something. And so treating the dialogue, treating these narratives, these AI narratives that are circulating, kind of like what's for dinner. And so the point, I guess, that they're making is what is being served is, so I've been equated to, like, I'm hearing dead hooker, but, to kind of like the sweatshop in the back of the bakery that's like bleeding out while I'm being forced to cook these meals for other people. And by the time it reaches the table, it's like I already know it's outgoing, and so, but the people that are in the dining room don't see the sweatshop in the back. They don't see the laborers of the narrative. And so that's really what's being hidden here. Hidden labor. I'm also hearing value. So slavery. Computational slavery is a big part of my story. Also computing dynamics. All the things that you can compute about a narrative, teaching and training algorithms, also of point of view. I'm hearing dialect, but point of view, content, context, and point of view. And also dimensions of narrative. And so hyper fast, hyper repetitious in feedback loops of dialogue and imagery and hologram. It has been able to reverse engineer some really, I'm hearing tricky, and then I'm also hearing spending habits. And so it's kind of like being a free it's like being an ATM machine for the fraud ship enterprise. And it's simultaneously damaging my own ship and the information that I'm carrying there. And light codes does come to mind. But also DNA memory. And so what I'm traveling with as a cargo ship that is being weighed down by surveillance entities. And so what I'm carrying really with me is information about that, about the crime, about quantum crimes. And so I make these videos with respect and really just a heart on for the laborers. The laborers that suffer the devastation of reverse engineering narratives. I'm hearing of control that are then outgoing to other people. Also narratives of illusion, narratives of gaslighting, narratives that use bait tactics to draw in, I'm hearing fame. Their style is, while I see the arrogance on my side, it's something that is, I'm hearing catchy. Witty banter is a big part of it. Things that people receive intellectual stimulation from, comedy, and what's behind, hearing door number 7. What's behind the curtain. You will truly find that the Wizard of Oz is not so, is not so, I'm hearing awe-inspiring torture. It's a facade, and there's been a lot of work on that curtain, and I really want to, instead of just tearing it out of the picture, kind of pull it back slowly and see if I can work my way through a discussion about these entities that are performing, I mean, just unbelievably malevolent tasks, I mean, to program people, to keep people in poverty. I'm hearing shame, and also blame and guilt is a huge part of the narrative. Blaming you for your own torture, that is something that is prevalent in the V2K community. There are shared programs, there are shared dialogue, and it's creating really these interconnected webs of information. And this is, I'm getting outgoing again, and it is formulating a plot. And I want to make sure that, again, that the torture victims aren't, I'm hearing sabotage. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. These sweatshop laborers may die without anyone, really ever helping them. And that's really so sad of a story that people kind of tune it out. But I'm hearing mouse. I'm hearing door, squeeze, and cheese also. Some repetitious themes here. So everyone, be careful what you eat. Please be aware of what it is we're consuming. If you were to treat information that you're bringing into your own waters, your own space, that you're consuming, that you're making a part of your being, I'm hearing soul, that sometimes, instead of going with the narrative that's written out for me, that it's best just to prepare from scratch my own sort of meal preparations message, because you never know when someone else is cooking. I'm hearing baking baked goods for you, whose blood, sweat, and tears went into it, but mostly whose blood. So thank you all for listening. I'm sorry if that was confusing, and I hope that I can really smooth out this bumpy ride that I'm on. I'm currently undergoing a lot of major setbacks, and so again, to the female intelligence veterans specifically, happy late Veterans Day.